Right, guys, so welcome back to another episode of the Terriers Top podcast. And as you can see on your screen, we are joined by Huddersfield Town legend Andy Booth. So, Andy, hello.
Hi, Ben. You all right?
I'm good, thank you very much. Yourself?
Yep, very well, thank you.
Well, let's just start getting into it then. What are your thoughts on the season so far?
It's been a little bit up and down, hasn't it, to say the least. I think we've got to admit the first half of the season before Christmas, we were all pleasantly surprised how well we're doing. I'll be honest, I thought we were going to have a tough season. Obviously, what happened last year and how we finished, and especially a new manager coming in, I thought it was going to be very difficult for the new manager not to have a lot of time to spend with the players and get them ready. So I thought we might struggle a little bit this year, but I was really impressed. The first half of the season, I thought we're playing a good style of football, attacking, creating chances, fast flowing, good movement. We're conceding goals, but we were scoring goals as well. So it was entertaining football, even though the games that we lost, it was still enjoyable to watch. So it was positive. And then you're thinking, right, come after Christmas, second half, and I think we're practically 11th, 10th, 11th, maybe 12th at that stage. And you're thinking 2 or 3 wins in January, and then we can look forward to having a playoff challenge. And obviously, as we know, it's not gone quite like that. I think I'm not making excuses, but obviously we've had a lot of injuries to key players, which is never good for any team. And I think that's really hurt us. I really do. I think that's where we've struggled. And then once you get onto a bit of a losing path, the confidence goes, and we're still conceding goals, but we're not scoring the goals, and we're not playing that attacking fluent football like we did before. So it's been a struggle this last couple of months, and everybody knows that. I think the players' confidence is low as well, but there's nothing that a couple of wins can't change. I know we're probably looking down rather than up at the minute, but a couple of wins, then we can get ourselves out of it. So it's still in our hands. Hopefully, a few of the injured lads might start coming back. I don't know. I've not heard of the situation where they are, but we've got to be positive. I've been impressed with Carlos. I think he's had a good first season. I think his hands are been tied a little bit, like the second half of the season with injuries. But I'm sure come September, come the summer, he'll rebuild again, and I'm sure he'll bring a few more players in, because I've liked the players he's brought in. Obviously, Pippa, Vallejo, Nabissar, Carol Eiting, who I think we've missed Carol quite a lot in that midfield. He just seemed to be getting stronger and stronger at every game, and the injury came at a bad time. Josh Karoma, missing Josh Karoma's goals as well. So I'm sure he'll have a few people who will want to bring in the summer that'll strengthen the squad again.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully we get some of those results soon and go back on the up. But for now, I think we'll jump back a little bit from the present, and we'll talk about your time with Town. And we'll start, obviously you came through the academy at Town, and how did that sort of come about? How were you scouted, and do you remember your debut as well?
I do. I'd love to say I came through the academy, but the academy was unfortunately not around when I was leaving school. It just changed from the apprenticeship scheme to YTS scheme. So all I did, I joined Huddersfield at the age of 14, got released at 14 and a half. I didn't sign a contract, and then I ended up going to Doncaster, Blackburn, Derby for trials, and the only club that wanted to sign me was Scarborough. So I was going to sign schoolboy forms for Scarborough, which meant if you did well, then they'd offer you an apprenticeship, a YTS scheme when you left school. And I was just about to sign for Scarborough on the Saturday morning, and I got a phone call Friday night from Jerry Murphy, who I'd known for a long time, did absolute fantastic work with the academy at Town for so many years, and obviously with the first team as well. And he rang me up and said, "I hear you're signing for Scarborough tomorrow." And I said, "Yeah, I am. Yeah." He says, "Well, we've been watching your progression since we released you from Huddersfield. We're watching you progress for the last 8-9 months, and we think we can't afford to lose you to Scarborough. We want you to sign for Huddersfield." So obviously, I didn't have to think about it at all. And Jerry lived in just in Netherton. I lived in Linley. And 20 minutes later, Jerry were up at my house with some signing on forms, and I signed for Huddersfield then. So that meant I had a 2-year contract with them, with the YTS scheme, and then obviously signed pro at the age of 18 after 2 years apprenticeship. My debut was against Fulham, down at Fulham, when I was a second-year apprentice. So I thought Owen Hand was the manager, and he just asked me. At the time then, apprentices used to do jobs, so you'd have to clean the boots, you'd have to do the kit, you'd have to clean all the change rooms, the showers and baths and all that. And I was like, as a second-year apprentice, you get given a top man. So the top man is in charge of all the other apprentices. Where I think there were about 14 other apprentices. So I was like the top man. So I had to look after Owen, Andy, and Ross, all the coaches, make sure their kit boots were all clean. And I also had to pack the skips for the matches. So there were no kit men back then. You look at Brookie today, Huddersfield Town's kit man. He's got two helpers with him. Back then it were the apprentices who packed the skips, did the kit, packed the boots and that. And sometimes if you were lucky, they asked you if you'd come with the first team just to like really carry the skip, put the kit out in the changing rooms and put the boots out for the players. And I was asked, it was down at Fulham, and Owen Hand says, Rover, will you come with the first team today just to help us out? And I just took that as, yeah, I'll carry the skips and I'll do all them jobs. And he said, but pack your boots just in case. And it never entered me anything. Got to Fulham, got to Craven Cottage. I'm helping with the skips. I'm packing all the kit, putting the boots out. And he says, right, everybody sit down. He names the team. And second sub, Andy Booth. So I did, and so my eyes were just like, what was that? Who was that? So I had no idea until about an hour and a half before kickoff that I was going to make my debut. And obviously on the bench, I think it was a 0-0. My memory, I'm sure it was 0-0. It was a terrible game. I came on, if you came off, and I came on for the last 25 minutes, and it was still 0-0. And I think I might have had a couple of touches, actually. I didn't do much. I didn't affect the game at all. But a great experience. And I've always been a Huddersfield Town fan. So to get me a chance to play for the first team at a club I love would a dream come true, really.
Yeah, and that's quite unbelievable, that little story there. So you left for Sheffield Wednesday. How was that stage of your career? And we've done some research and we found that Andy Booth turned into a goalkeeper one game against Liverpool. So just tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, you have done your research there, because I don't know where that is. I look at myself on Wikipedia and see what's on there. Like, people do change it every now and again. And I've not seen that. Yeah, my first season, it went well. Obviously, I signed for Sheffield Wednesday in 1996. We had a great season at Sheffield. We were top of the league for the first 6 games of the Premier League. And we really should have got into Europe that season. We just had a bad April, and I think we ended up about 6th or 7th, maybe 8th in the Premier League. And so we're disappointed really, because we should have been in top 4. And for a club like Sheffield Wednesday, who were a good club back then, they had a lot of good players, but we were still overachieving. But for us not to finish in Europe, we were disappointing. So last game of the season, we had Liverpool at home, and it were party atmosphere. Obviously, we'd had a fantastic season, but we couldn't go any higher than we couldn't get into Europe. But Liverpool had to win to get into the Champions League, European Cup back then. It won the Champions League. I think that means they'd have finished 3rd, but they had to beat us. So first half came, we were 0-0. Half time, our goalkeeper Kevin Pressman got injured, who played all season, had a fantastic season, got injured just before half time, so he came off. Then Matt Clark, who signed with me, Matt Clark came from Rotherham. He signed for me exactly the same day as me, so he'd had a year sat on the bench, not done anything. And obviously, last game of the season, Kevin Pressman gets injured. Matt Clark comes on. 10 minutes into his debut, I think it might be Bobby Fowler going through. He's come sliding out and he's handballed it outside the box and he's given him an automatic red card. So poor Matt Clark, he had 10 minutes of his debut and then he's sent off. So we're looking around because before, when they never used to be, when I first started, there never used to be two goalkeepers on obviously, well, one goalkeeper on the bench. There only used to be two, sometimes three subs. You'd never have a reserve goalkeeper. So you used to know which player would go in goalie if we had to. But because you had a reserve goalkeeper, you never did that anymore. So we needed, we're all looking around who's going to go in goal. And everybody knew that I played cricket. So everybody knew I could catch a ball. And they said, Boo, you go in goal, you go in goal. And I'm saying, no, what? They said, no. So they threw me the gloves, threw me the shirt. So I'm in goal there. And obviously the first bit, there's a free kick, a direct free kick just outside the box where obviously Matt Clark had handballed it. So I've got my wall lined up perfectly. Jamie Redknapp's taking the free kick and I can see it. And he's curled one, he's bent one. And I'm just stood there looking. I'm thinking, well, that's going miles over the bar. That's what a bad free kick that is. And it nestled into my top corner, right into the top corner of the goal. And I was absolutely amazed how big a goals they were. When you're sat in goal, it stood in goal, the goals are absolutely massive. When I'm a striker and I'm heading towards goals, they only look small, they only look absolute tiny. So it's the difference. And so my first touch of being in goal was picking the ball out of the back of the net from Jamie Redknapp. So I thought this isn't going to go very well. So that meant we were 1-1. We'd scored just after half time. So it 1-1. So then obviously Liverpool had 35 minutes to try and get another goal to go into Europe. And Michael Owen had 3 1-on-1s against me and I saved them all. Don't ask me how I did it. It was just hitting me. It was hitting my legs, and I was just making myself bigger. And I just had one of them games that and you could see the frustration on the Liverpool players and even the fans. Like I went at the Leppings Lane end at Hillsborough, and I was getting some right pelters from the Liverpool fans. But everything went right for me, and we ended up drawing 1-1. Liverpool missed out on a spot in the European Cup. Weren't very popular, but I loved it. I've never been in goal since, and I would never have volunteered it again. But that experience were fantastic. Really enjoyed it.
Well, I mean, talking about another experience, you've played for another club, Tottenham Hotspur. You went on loan in the 2001, I think it was. So how did that really come about then?
By surprise, really. Came completely out of the blue. We Sheffield Wednesday, we'd just gone down. So we were playing the Championship, and I'd been injured a lot of the year. So I'd only got a couple of goals, 2 or 3 goals, but I'd missed most of the season. And I was talking to my old manager, Neil Warnock, about moving. My contract was up at the end of the season, moving to Sheffield United. And I got a phone call on the Wednesday morning, and it was a gentleman called Bobby Smith. And Bobby was my coach at Sheffield Wednesday in the early days. And he rang me and just asked me how I was going on. And he said, do you fancy a loan move back to one of your old managers? And I just presumed going back on loan with Neil Warnock before I agreed permanent terms with Sheffield United. So I said, yeah, I'm happy with that. Yeah, no problem at all. So he said, well, leave it to me. You'll get a phone call at the weekend. We were playing an FA Cup. We were playing Southampton now at Southampton. He says, you'll get a phone call and we'll sort it out after Saturday's game. So I got a phone call, and it was David Pleat, who was my old manager. But David Pleat was the director of football at Tottenham, at Spurs. And he says, Boothy, it's Pleaty. I said, yeah. And I'd never clicked at all until they said, well, we want you to come on loan to Spurs. And I was just nearly about to say, well, hang on now, I think I'm going to go on loan to Sheffield United with Warnock. And just clicked that, no, Bobby Smith's we're working with David Pleat. So it came completely out of the blue. It would only I ended up being there about a couple of months, but it would only meant to be like a month's loan spell because all the strikers, the Spurs had been injured. All the big lads, Les Ferdinand, Stefan Everson, Chris Armstrong, they were all injured. And they just bought this small Russian player, Sergei Rebrov, and they needed a big lad to play up front with him. And David Plate obviously knew me from Sheffield Wednesday, so he just said, I know a target man, Boothy will fill in perfectly for him, with him. So that's what it was. And a day later, that Monday morning, I went down the M1 to Spurs, got absolute hammered in the press. I was on the back pages getting hammered by the London press saying Tottenham shouldn't be getting a championship player who's only scored 2 goals all season. They didn't say I'd only played about a handful of games. So I was getting reporters in my hotel, ringing me in my hotel room, knocking at my hotel door, trying to get a story from me. And it was completely different from life up north. Even though I played 4 years in the Premier League with Sheffield Wednesday, down there it was completely different. But I had a fantastic time there. Played about 6 or 7 times. Unfortunately, I never scored, which I was very disappointed with. My first ever touch of the ball was a header past David James at West Ham, and from a great ball by Darren Anderton. And when you're a striker, you know when you might be offside or you might be close. You always have a look at the linesman to see. But in one of them, I must have been about 5 yards onside. But because the ball was that good, I ran straight onto it. Caught it perfectly, straight past David James. Had no chance, and I'm off celebrating. And it was only when I realised the rest of the Spurs players weren't coming to celebrate with me that something was wrong. And I've looked across, and the linesman's got his flag up, waving me offsides. And so I went over, said a few choice words to him. Found out it was his very first game in the Premier League. He was only about 22, 23. He was a young lad. And I've never forgiven him. We're talking 20 years ago, 2001, 20 years ago, and I've still not forgiven him for waving that flag offside. If only we had VAR back then, I said. But great experience. But 7-8 weeks down in London was enough for me. I'm a Yorkshire lad, Huddersfield lad, so I was glad to get back up north after that.
Yeah, so obviously you mentioned you're a Huddersfield lad, and you did eventually come home to Huddersfield Town. Again, how did that move come about, and how did it go? I suppose I think we all know how well it went, and that's how you cemented yourself as the legend that we all know today. But yeah, how did it go and how did it come about, I suppose?
That's very, very kind of you to say that. Again, out of the blue. I'd been talking, well, no, I hadn't been talking. I met Steve Bruce in Barbados, just on a chance, about a year before. We were watching the World Cup, England were playing, and we ended up being in the same bar in Barbados, me and Steve Bruce. And we got chatting, and he was obviously the Huddersfield manager then, and he said to me, fancy coming back to Huddersfield? And obviously this had to be a hush-hush because I was still at Sheffield Wednesday. He didn't want to feel as though he were tapping me up. And I says, look, if Sheffield Wednesday agree it and they're happy for me to come back, he says, yeah, I'd love to come back. I always wanted to finish my career at Huddersfield, but I never thought it would be when I was 27, 28. I thought I'd be 31, 32 when I came back, when I'd come back. So Steve Bruce said, yeah, leave it with me. I'll sort it out and I'll get in touch when we get back home. And about 7 or 8 weeks later, he went to Birmingham. He left the club and went to Birmingham. So I thought, well, that's probably the deal's probably dead in the water there. And then one Sunday morning, I was just washing my car and my mobile rang, and I didn't recognise the number. And he says, "Is that Boothy?" And I says, "Yeah." And he said, "It's Lou Macari." And Lou Macari, we're right to the point. He weren't any a person for chit chatting or conversations. And his exact words were, "Is that Boothy?" I says, "Yeah, it is." He says, "Lou Macari, Huddersfield Town manager." He says, "Oh, hi, Lou, you all right?" He says, "Yeah, I'm fine." He said, "I want to ask you, do you want to come back to Huddersfield Town?" And I said, "Well, yeah, of course I do. Yeah, eventually." He says, "That's good enough for me." And he put the phone down. That's all. That's the only time I spoke to him. And then got a call, obviously, at Sheffield Wednesday, I got a call into the Terriers from Peter Sheaves' office saying, "Look, Huddersfield Town have made a request to bring you back." But at the minute, Sheffield Wednesday, we were like, it would just have to have been to Spurs, actually. And we were struggling a bit in the Championship as well. I think we needed about 2 wins to guarantee we'd be safe. And Peter Sheaves said, "Look, if we can get them 2 wins, we'll let you go back to Huddersfield." And the very next game, well, the next 2 games, we won. And Peter Sheaves called me in, and to be fair to him, he was straight to his word. He says, look, we're safe now. If you want to go back to Huddersfield, your contract's up at the end of the season. If you want to go back, Huddersfield were bottom of the league. He said, if you want to go back and try and save them and help them out of relegation, we're more than happy. And obviously that's how the deal was done. It was done on transfer deadline day, so we had a couple of months to try and save Huddersfield from relegation, which again, one we regret deeply, but we should have done. We did everything right those last couple of months, 2 or 3 months, and it was only the last game of the season playing Birmingham where all the other teams had to lose. All we needed was a point and would have been safe. And all the other teams won. We lost 2-1 to Birmingham and ended up going down. But we played Wimbledon on the Wednesday night and absolutely hammered them. And we drew 1-1 there. And if we'd have won, we must have had 2 or 3. And I'm not blaming anybody, but I'm not blaming anybody. Delroy Facey had a couple of one-on-ones. I keep mentioning it to Del anyway, so he won't mind me mentioning it. And if we'd have scored them, we'd have stayed up. And unfortunately, the last game of the season, everything went against us. And it was just one of those days. And I remember that change room at the end of it, poor Lou Macari, all the players, we'd done so much to get out of it. So it was so disappointing. But that was our back at Huddersfield. And obviously that's where I stayed the rest of my career.
Brilliant. So, like Jack said, your second spell was kind of where you cemented your legendary status, and we'll fast forward to your finishing days of your career, and more specifically Leyton Orient away, where you scored your last and 150th goal for the club. How special was that, if you can put it into words?
That was probably the most memorable day of my career. I played over 650 times, scoring 187 goals, 2 Wembley appearances, Cardiff appearance, playing for England under 21s. That weekend, that game has to go down as the best game of my career. Just for really the emotion, the sentimental value. I knew it was going to be the last ever game. And also, Lee Clark was the manager. And what he did was, he asked if I wanted to bring my son down with me for him to experience like my last ever game, which obviously this had never happened before. So my son was 6 at the time. And so what he did was, we trained in the morning, on the Friday morning at Canal Side it was, where my son was ball boy. He'd go behind the goal, fetch the balls, and that. If anybody wanted a drink, he'd go and get the bottles of water, the Lucas said. He were like the kit man. I know we did have a kit man, but he were like the odd job man, like anybody who wanted a job. So then we got on the coach. He came on the coach with us. Getting again, all the lads were absolutely brilliant with him. Team meetings, he went into the team meetings, stayed in the same obviously hotel room as me. We had next day breakfast, then walk, and all the lads were so good with him. Team meeting again. So he shared that experience with me in the changing rooms last game. He was there, sat next to me. He could have been mascot if he wanted to, but he didn't want to. Lee Clark let him sit on the bench as well. So for that experience, so it was absolutely brilliant for me. But to be able to have my son with me to experience my last ever game. So, and it's something that he'd never obviously see me play, but he never knew what the inside of a football club was like on a match day, and he'd never ever get the opportunity again. So for him to get that one chance meant the world to him, and he still mentions it now. He's 18, and he still talks about it now. And for me to score the first goal, my 150th, the goal with momentum made me celebrate in front of the town fans. There must have been 2,000 town fans down there. The Leyton Orient fans all gave me a great applause as well, reception. So everything went perfectly. If I couldn't have written it, if I were going to write the script, I just couldn't write it any better. And say, just thinking about it now, I still smile. That's my last ever shirt. You might be able to see my last ever one on at Leyton Orient. I think it's signed by all the players as well. So I've got that hanging up there. So when I look at it, it just makes me smile, because what a brilliant day, brilliant weekend, and for me to score my last ever goal on my last ever game, making it my 150th. I say I couldn't have written it any better at all.
So would you go as far as say that's your favourite goal that you've ever scored? And if it is, then is there any close contenders to that?
Yeah, I say, yeah. There's every goal. I'll name all 150 for Huddersfield. Every goal, brilliant. But yeah, that one was very special. The 150th, my last ever one, it was a special moment. But the Wembley goal in the playoff final against Bristol Rovers goes down as one of them. Just to score at Wembley, something I've always dreamed of. Playing at Wembley, there were 6,000 people there, and to be able to first to win and me score a goal, that goes down as a special goal as well. Goal my first ever goal at Sheffield Wednesday. It just happened to be against Leeds United at Ellen Road, so that's always a little bit special as well. But there's been quite a few. I scored my best one, and nobody will ever believe this because the television cameras were there, but they didn't. There's no way they could have picked up then, because back then they had a camera in one penalty box and a camera looking at the other penalty box, so you couldn't see what happened outside each penalty area. So we were playing down at Cambridge, and we ended up, well, we won 5-4. It was an unbelievable game. We just played in the Autoglass final on the Sunday. We'd been drinking for 2 days solid, and then we had to play Cambridge, and we wanted for them to move the game so we could like have a bit of celebration after the Wembley, but they wouldn't. So we went down there. We wanted to beat them just for how they'd not done us any favours at all. And we won 5-4, and I scored the first goal. And I got the ball on the halfway line on the left wing, and I beat about 5 men down the left wing, cut inside, then curled it into the stanchion, and it's practically stuck into the stanchion of the far goal, far post. And that's my best goal I've ever scored. I've done a DVD, and I said it with a Rotherham goal at home where I scored a 25-yard volley. That's only because the cameras had that, so we couldn't really show me Cambridge one. So I might embellish a little bit that I beat 5 men and started at halfway line, but nobody's got any proof to
play otherwise. Yeah,
exactly. So in my head, I started at the halfway line, beat 5 men, but I did bend it into the top corner. So, and you can see that on video.
Yeah, so that's brilliant. But just sticking on the topic of personal best, who would you say throughout your career were the best players you played with, and on the flip side, the best players or the toughest players you had to play against?
Oof.
It's a tough one too.
Because I've played with so many great players, and played against with so many great players as well. Probably for Huddersfield, obviously Ronnie Jepson was a big help to me at the beginning of my career. We were strike partners. We were the first strike partners to score 20 goals in 60 years at the club together. So Ronnie really helped me. The first couple of years, Ronnie was absolutely brilliant with me. He took all because back then it was a different game. It was tough, and that the centrals were tough. And he sorted all that out, looked after that, and all I had to do was just concentrate on playing football, which obviously I did. So Ronnie was a big part of my early days. But one of the best players, and I always say it, was Pavel Abbott as a striker. Pavel Abbott had everything. He could score, and it was his right foot, his left foot, volleys, tap-ins, headers. He had good movement. He weren't the quickest, but he found space all the time. And every season he scored, but I think he scored 25 plus in his first 3 seasons, which is unbelievable for a young lad. And he did have everything. And it just, unfortunately for Pav, when he lost his confidence and went through a goal drought, and he didn't seem to he never got back to his best. So he ended up obviously leaving the club and going to Swansea and other places. But on his day when he first came, Pavel Abbott was a fantastic player. But I could name quite a few. There's loads that I could say who I played with. Sheffield Wednesday, Paolo Di Canio has to be one of the best players. Great skill. Obviously, a 5-year Italian. Crackers. But what a fantastic player. Great professional. Probably one of the best professionals I've played with. He was like the first on the training ground and always the last off. And then we'd be going home. The English lads were going home. Barlow and then had be going into the gym and then spend like an hour and a half in the gym. He was, fantastic player, and he had talent, but he worked it as well. He worked hard to even though he was probably the best player at the time, he still worked so hard to get better and better, to be the best he could. So it's a lesson for everybody there. Carry on training, working hard as you want, and even the best still have to work hard. And probably the hardest opposition, Jaap Stam at Man United was never got anything from Jaap Stam when I played Man United. I had a real battle with Neil Ruddock at Anfield. Once we were black and blue, we kicked each other up and down, and my eye would cut, his eye would cut, and it were great battle. We won 1-0 at Anfield that day, but end of the game we shook hands. We had a beer in the bar afterwards. But probably the toughest opponent. I played against Ruud Gullit down at Chelsea, one of the world's best players, and he'd just been named the manager at Chelsea, so he would play manager, and you could tell he'd be what a player he was. He played sweeper, and he was just on a different level to me. Pinging 50-yard balls, right, left foot to Zola, Viale, you name it. Great player. But the Arsenal back four of Adams, Keown, Winterburn, and Dixon, and if you got past them, you still had David Seaman to beat in goal. And I know it's not one player but they were so organised, and they played together for over 10 years, and that's why they had so much success at Arsenal in that era, because the defence was so organised. I know it helps when you've got Vieira, Petit, Anelka, Ian Wright, Overmars, Bergkamp up front, but when you've got a defence like that, as strikers, sometimes if you made runs and there were silly runs, they wouldn't even talk. They'd just look at each other, step up, and they'd catch offside every time. So really, it was an honour to play against them, because there was such a well-organised, well-drilled defence that they were great players, really were.
Yeah, it's quite unbelievable. We'll go on to kind of what the fans think of you and your chant more specifically, because that does ring around the stadium. Obviously, we haven't been there for over a year now, but even when you were playing and even on match days, because you are quite closely associated with the club now, how kind of special and does your chant evoke any specific memories of your playing career?
Well, the chant's changed actually a bit over the years. Obviously, at first when I was playing, it used to be Bouvet, and they do still chant that. But it's brilliant, honestly. Really, I don't think fans realise how important the support the fans are, and for you as a player, if you hear your name getting sung by all the fans by the stadium, it makes you feel 10 foot tall. It makes you feel full of confidence, and it feels like you can't do anything wrong, and it really does help. And on the flip side, when these fans that have obviously don't like a player and they do make it noticeable as well, it has such a detrimental effect on that player. It kills their confidence, and they don't get better; they just get worse. So I've been lucky that the Huddersfield fans have always supported me. They've always been absolutely brilliant to me all through my career. So I've always felt, going on a pitch, coming off a pitch, I've always felt supported, wanted, loved, and it really does help me. I think now it does. Now when I've been going to away games and you walk into the stand and you start chanting, number 1 is Andy Boone, and they're going up to number 11, 13, 14, whatever. It's my son and daughter. If my son's not bothered, but if I'm with my daughter, she hasn't been for a while, but when she were younger, when she were 9 or 10, she was horrified. How embarrassing! I would the embarrassing dad, and she hated it. But I've got to admit, the fans have always been, and it's great that they still remember it and still chanting. I've got to admit, it does feel when you sat in the stand and they are chanting that, and when there's 11 players out on the pitch where they're supposed to be supporting and watching, it does make me feel a bit embarrassed and thinking, come on lads, get behind the pitch and forget about me. But no, inside it's great. It is, and the fans have always been brilliant to me.
And you've continued that role within the club with the role that you've got at the club now. So for those that might not know too much about it, do you want to go into detail about kind of what you do now at the club?
Yeah. I've been the club ambassador for 11 years. So I work closely with the commercial department. As I work in support services, which we try and look after our fans, our fans groups, disabled fan group. Well, it was the patrons. So I look at the foundation, work closely with the foundation as well, working in the community. We try and raise money for the foundation, work closely with the Yorkshire Air Ambulance with the Keep Up campaign, doing annual bike rides and raising money for the Yorkshire Air Ambulance and the town foundation. Well, it's my job's something different every day, really. It's not one thing. It's really just to help everybody. And I'm such lucky. The club have been absolutely brilliant to me because they just let me. They've given me a role with the club I love. I'm helping the community. I'm helping the supporters, the club. So I've got best of both worlds. I'm still to go down to the training ground as well. So I've got that. Not a day-to-day togetherness with the players, but I still see them on a weekly basis. So I've still got that lot of interaction. Because I think it would have been hard for me if I left the club after all them years and not being part of it. I think I would have struggled. So to be part of it and not have the pressure of the win, lose or draw games, I enjoy watching, and obviously we want them to win and want Huddersfield to do well, but I just don't have that pressure of the football side. But I really enjoy what I'm doing, and I think you'll all agree it's a great club, and it really is a good club.
Yeah.
And we've got a lot of good people down there. The fans are fantastic, and I'm sure, like you've been lucky over the last few years seeing them in the Premier League and in the Championship, getting promoted in the Championship. I'm sure you'll be wanting to see some more of them good times, and there's no reason why we can't, because as I say, if we all stick together, all support each other, we can get back up that table and start enjoying the good times again.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that you still go down to the training ground every so often, and do you see like yourself and any of the youngsters coming through, or any of the strikers in the first team that we have currently?
I don't. I've got to admit, I don't see a lot of the training. I'm down when they're around and about. I don't watch any of the training, so I've not really seen much of the young lads. I'd say the main one, Kevin Phillips, who's started to break into the first team, and I've been very impressed with him. He looks to be a big lad, but it looks to have a bit of pace as well with him. So I'm sure we'll be seeing a lot of him. I thought after the Middlesbrough game, he might have got thrown in and giving him a chance to start. But over the last few weeks, he's just had 10, 15 minutes even there. So, but what I've seen, I've been impressed. It was very unlucky in the middle of the game not to get a goal, and it's so important to goal early doors. I'm going back to my career. I were like you, came on 2 or 3 times, 4 times as a sub and never scored. When I made my second start, then I scored my first goal. So, but it's always nice to get a goal under your belt pretty quickly in your career. So it would have been nice for him to have scored, because he did everything right. That 35, 40 minutes he was on the pitch, and it'd have changed the game. And you never know, that could be in the start of his career. But I'm sure next year he'll have a good pre-season under his belt. He'll become stronger. He's a year older, and I think he'll be an handful, and I think he'll be a player to watch, definitely.
Yeah, well, hopefully Kieran does get that first goal soon and kick on. And now I think that's a good time to wrap it up. So first of all, on behalf of all of us, thank you so much, Andy. It's fantastic that you agreed to come on, and I think it's been brilliant. I've really enjoyed it. It's been a bit surreal. But yeah, thank you again. And to everyone watching, thank you. If you haven't already, if you could subscribe, like the video, share it around, and we will see you next time on the weekly review. So I'll see you later.